Hey Ens, how are you doing? Happy Martin Luther King Day. If you celebrate Martin Luther King Day or are in the United States, it is a federal holiday here, so it is a day off from work. I've actually been off for a few days and I've been off from filming. I've also been off from my regular job. I was not feeling well the end of last week. I actually was not sure what was going on. I was feeling pretty, what's the word I want to use? Pretty crappy. So I was having symptoms similar to a migraine, but it didn't feel like any migraine I had ever had before. And so I started to worry that something was going on that I wasn't used to having, because it's been quite a while since I've had a migraine. It's been like a migraine of that magnitude. So on Friday, I went to see the doctor, and he believes it's an atypical migraine. So, but none of my medicines that I am currently taking for migraine was helping to knock it out, and I had it for about 4 days. So he gave me some medication to help knock it out. So I'm currently taking that, and I'm starting to feel better. But he's sent me to get some additional testing done just to rule out any other kind of things going on neurologically and internally, internal cranially, so that we can make sure that there's nothing else going on there. But all that being said, I took a few days off from filming. I took a few days off from my other job to make sure that I was okay. And so I was away for a while. It also helped me to think retrospectively that going forward, I think I'm going to have a video weekdays, and then I'm going to take the weekends off just to give me time to recuperate and relax and enjoy time for myself, along with help prioritize time for other things in my life that is going on right now. So just to be prepared for that. So I will try to have videos weekdays, Monday through Friday, but then on the weekends, I will take time for myself. So with that being said, I do have a decent amount of progress since the last time I had a video. Well, maybe not necessarily a decent amount of progress, but I've worked on a bunch of different things. So I do have things to show you on a number of different projects. So first off, let's go over my knitting. Obviously, because I wasn't feeling well, I did not travel like I was supposed to. So that travel is being pushed off until another time in the foreseeable future, where I will be able to travel without being impeded by disorientating head pains. So, all right, the first thing that I want to show you is, remember I was working on part 2 of part 1 sock. So this is a sock. Again, remember I'm trying to use up things that are in my possession that I've had for many, many years in my yarns. And so yarn and cross stitch, I'm trying to use up a lot of the stuff that I've already owned and had in my possession for quite a long time. So these are things that just trying to use up and be more mindful of the things that I have before I go and purchase some things. Not that I haven't already purchased some things, but you know what I mean. So this is yarn that I bought 2 years ago during a yarn of the month thing. And this is Trilogy Yarns Chambord. It was their cocktail of the month. And so, which bag is that in? It's in this bag, I think. I worked along and I was able to finish. Here is the cake. think I'm gonna have a good bit of yarn left over on this one, which is nice. I can probably get another pair of socks, maybe short socks. Obviously these are shorty socks, but maybe another pair of short socks, ankle socks, something like that out of it. And I was able to finish the leg. So the leg is completely done. I'm ready to move on to the heel. Maybe I'll work on that today. We'll see. I have so many things on the go right now that I have my choice of things that I can work on, which is something I sometimes do and sometimes I don't. So that is sock number 1 that I'm working on. Then I don't know if I showed you this before or not. So I got this for Christmas. It's 52 weeks of socks. I wanted to knit something new, but obviously most of these, not obviously, I don't know if you know this or not, most of the patterns in this book are not compatible with my feet because I have big feet, but I can knit them for friends. I think maybe I did talk about this. I don't remember. But so I started this sock, which is Garia. The picture is horrible because it makes the person look like they have a deformed foot, but I really loved this sock pattern. You actually turn it inside out and stitch it inside out and then turn it around whenever you're done. So I am knitting this sock, Garia, for a friend. And so I am using a sock yarn that I've had for a while now. This is yarn from yarn.com. It's their brand of sock yarn. I don't even know what the name of the color is. I don't have the ball band anymore. I've had it caked up for quite a long time. So it's kind of like a blue-green. Right there's a good color of what it looks like. I have 2 50-gram cakes of this. And I have a good bit done. So there is, as you can see, that's why it looks, you don't actually see the design on it. It's a bottom up, toe up sock, because when you turn it inside out, there is the design. So there is sock number 1 of that sock going on. I have to measure to see how much more of the foot I have to do before I move on to the heel. I also have to get the foot measurement again of the friend that I'm knitting this for. I think I remember the size, but I don't remember exactly. So there is sock number 1 of that. Knits up pretty quickly. Again, just round and round and round, and knits and purls once you get the toe on. The toe is always the most fiddly whenever you're doing toe up, just because of the double pointed needles and, you know, such tight quarters. So that is sock 2. Then, because I was in a cast on mood, I wanted to start a sweater. So I cast on a sweater for myself using, and if you've been around with me for long enough, I bought this yarn 3 years ago, and for a while it was a decoration in my apartment near Henry. I have 2 cones. My colorway, obviously, yellow is everything. And this is called Aconite, A-C-O-N-I-T-E, Aconite. It's from Holst Garn in Europe. Holst Garn, it's Aconite is the colorway, and this is their Coast yarn. So it's a 55% wool, 25% cotton, I believe. It's in their language, so I think it's Dutch. So it's 55% wool, 25 or 45% cotton, I think. It's their Coast blend. So I am doing a sweater by Gerald Flood. I believe it's called, it's on my iPad, so I can't look at it right now. I forget what the sweater name is. If I remember, I'll write it here somewhere on the screen. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank right now. That's one of the symptoms that I'm having right now with my head troubles, is that my memory has been very, very shoddy. So, but I cast this on, and it's a simple. Once I did learn a new technique, which was the tubular cast on method. I've never done a tubular cast on. I actually cast it on, did about 4 hours of knitting, didn't like my cast on at all, pulled it back out, and then started over again. I'm much happier with it. So here is my progress so far on my sweater. And so it looks really small. So I'm hoping that I picked the right size, and once it blocks out, it'll be fine. So here we go. Here's my sweater. It does have a little bit of a texture design on the sides. And it's just a basic bottom up circular sweater, nothing super fancy until you get to the yoke, and then it has a little bit of a texture yoke shoulder thingamajig doing raglan type. I think it's a raglan style sweater. So there we go. That's where I'm at so far on my sweater. It's like 6 inches in. So going pretty quickly. Nothing super fancy, but I'm hoping that this one will last. This is the second sweater I've knit with this yarn because I didn't like the first one. So this will be a nice sweater that I can, because it's a lighter fabric, I will be able to wear it over top of a button down or something like that for work or anything like that, going out to dinner, those kind of things. So that is my sweater. Then last night, amongst all of that knitting, can you tell there's been a trend? I've been able to do a lot of knitting because of my head. I did work on the Manos del Uruguay scarf that I haven't touched in about a month. Maybe, it's not been quite a month, maybe a few weeks. The sage smudging scarf that I cast on a few weeks ago. And it's not in this color because the sweater's in this color, but I am doing, well, that's not right either. Where does this go? There we go. I just want to make sure I keep my paperwork correct. So this is from yarns from, and I bought this yarn on Etsy. This is from Black Sheep Dye Works. That's their that's what the tag is on the skein. Black Sheep Dye Works in the color Agate. And their yarn is a sock weight superwash merino, 100% superwash. So 100% merino. That's what the yarn looks like. I was actually just on Etsy today and they have this in stock. And I did four sets. I think I did 4 sets of repeats last night while watching a movie. This one is definitely a much slower going just because it's lace work. As you can see, because I have to read the pattern the whole time. I sometimes get lost in the pattern. And so I just nice and slow and steady wins the race. No rush on this one. Not knitting it for anyone in particular, just knitting to knit and to use up the yarns that I have. And what I like about this one is that it's a really pretty yarn, and I think the design amongst the lace work is just a really cool effect. So I really like that one. Nice and fun. That's all of my knitting. I have an update on my Amaryllis. As you can see, the evergreen is fully, well, not quite fully out because I still have one spike there that hasn't fully emerged yet, but 2 of the 3 spikes are fully out, and actually this one here is starting to fade a little bit, but you can see there quite an abundance of blooms, which I absolutely love. I'm very happy I got this bulb just because of how unique and different that spike is. You can see there how tall it actually got, and I'll step back here in a second. You can see here another one that has just gotten ginormous is my red velvet. I think it's called red velvet. It has not started to bloom yet, but it has probably grown a foot in the last 2 days just in height. And you can see the second one here is emerging and is getting to the point where I'm going to be able to put it into, I think it'll fit in that flower stake. I have the first one that started to bloom actually snapped off. Unfortunately, I did not have a stake in it, and so the first one did pretty much looked pretty pitiful, so I did cut it off. And then the second one just decided to one day snap off, and this one here snapped off, but so now we just have leaves. But that's all right. I do have the one that snapped off in a vase, and I'm able to enjoy the rest of the flowers on my little bookshelf mantelpiece there in front of Henry. I do have this one here, which is called Amadeus Candy, I believe. Yeah, Amadeus Candy. And it is finally starting to, all 3 of the bloom spikes are starting to come up. So that will be nice whenever it does start to bloom. And finally, over the weekend here, I am starting to see a bloom spike emerge out of the last remaining bulb. So I might have a bloom by Easter on this one if it grows the same way that it has. And this is Picotte, Picotte. It's more of a white with a red tinge on it. So as you can see how tall, I'll step all the way back. You can see how tall that red velvet one is. And I have to keep rotating them so that they keep going towards the light and they don't bend too far over, but they're quite tall this year. So that is my update on my Amaryllis. Cross stitch. I have a finish. So I was working on the Vickery Collection Spring Beer Stein. I've already completed the Winter Beer Stein, and I started the Spring Beer Stein last week and a half ago. And again, for memory's sake, here is the Winter Beer Stein. And I have a finish on the Spring Beer Stein. So, okay. So this is on 28 count Zweigart Gold Flecked Lugana. You can see, I can see the gold flecks in this. I'm hoping it's coming across there. With the called for DMC. DMC colors galore. There are so many DMC colors in this. There are colors of DMC in my DMC bobbin box that I have never touched before until this project. So, DMC colors that I've never used before ever. It's backstitched. I even learned a new technique because it calls for see, I'm losing words today, people. It calls for French knots. I didn't use French knots though. I don't like making French knots. I'm really bad at making French knots, but I remembered watching somebody and they said they don't use French knots, they use colonial knots. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll try to learn how to make colonial knots. So I watched a YouTube video on making colonial knots and I put colonial knots in for these flower centers. And it was so easy. So there we go. So I used colonial knots for the flower centers and lots of backstitch. But it's a finish, mini finish, because I still have 2 more beer steins to go. So here are the 2 beer steins that are complete. And I have 2 more to go. I have summer and I have fall. Will they get done this year? Maybe, maybe not. Will it be 2 more years before I start another one? Maybe, but we're on the road towards, we're halfway done. So, beer stein, Vickery collection, and we're halfway to a finish, a big finish. So I had mentioned uno momento. I had mentioned having a full set of DMC. And I thought this would be a perfect time of talking about that because I've talked about it before. I know many people have a full set of DMC and they do it different ways. I know bobbins are not the popular thing to do anymore, and people are now doing the floss cards or whatever they call it, like the floss drops, floss things. And then I can't stand that personally. It's a little bit too messy for my taste. Often like the floss cards that have all the different colors on it that come in kits and things like that, and then they get messy. I can't handle that. So I'm a bobbinator if at all costs, if I can do that. I have a full set of DMC in one box. I bought this box on Amazon a number of years ago. I have all colors in this box. And so all 400 and some colors, including all the new colors 1 through 35 are in this box. So I have 1 through 35 and up to 806 on one side. And then you turn it around. And on the other side is 80 whatever through B5200. That way this sits on the couch beside me whenever I need the full set of DMC, whenever I need DMC. I do not pull out and have individual sets for individual projects. I work and I use from the master set for every single project I work on. That way then it's continually getting switched out as I need the floss. It doesn't go into, if they're popular colors, then they are not getting, I guess, the colors. Then if they do change the dye lots or anything like that, it's not that noticeable because it's continually changing. Those colors that I don't touch very often, the likelihood of me ever touching them then are, it's rare that I'm ever going to need them. But at least I have them in case of the project of like the Vickery collection, then I have them. Big projects like my Heaven and Earth designs, my Hade, I do buy separate floss for that, and I put it in a separate bobbin box, which I will show you next time I pull out my Heaven and Earth designs. But for the most part, if I have smaller projects or projects that just call 1 or 2 DMC pieces, I keep all of my floss in the bobbin box, the master collection. So I hope if you had any questions, if you have any more questions regarding how I store my floss, that's how I do it. If I do have, the next project that I have that I'm going to show you, my new start, it calls for 2 colors. I will probably keep them separate from the main color, the main box, and I'll keep it with the project because it calls for like 12 skeins total. I will keep that separate, but then I'll know that if I need it, I'll just pull from that. I won't buy separate and bobbinate a separate bobbin just for that design. I hope that makes sense. Moving on then to my new design, not my new design, my new project that I started. I gave a little bit of a teaser on Instagram saying that I'm itching for a new cross stitch. And somebody guessed it right on what I was starting. I had, ever since Modern Folk Embroidery posted their new stitch along, it's been in the back of my head. Now his designs, while I've stitched his designs in the past, I do like many of his small designs, I have never gravitated towards his large monochromatic or bichromatic tapestry style stitch alongs. They've just not been my thing. However, this year's has struck a chord with me. And so while I held off on buying it initially, even though I really liked it back in November, it's just always been there in the back of my head, like, I like it. And then I've been watching whip parades and project parades and people starting that piece, and I've been drawn to it. And so yesterday, after finishing my beer stein, I wanted to go back to London, but I just wasn't feeling it. And I didn't want to force doing anything that I don't feel like doing. And so I thought, I think I'm going to start that design. Now, granted, there are a lot of projects that I really want to start, but I had the fabric in mind that I wanted to start this specific project on. And so if I had the fabric and the floss, other than the consecutive skeins of floss that I'm going to have to go buy from Joann's or Michael's, why not just start it if I already had the fabric? So I went ahead and bought Modern Folk Embroidery's Reaching Skyward. Now, this is not what it looks like. Like, this is the main picture right there. And that is the alternative cover. And the premise of this design is that you can mix and match the motifs so that you get your own unique flavor to the design. there are components of both that I like that I'm probably going to stitch up so that I have a unique design. I also don't necessarily, I'm not sure if there are 4 unique trees in the center that you can buy in a separate book. And so I don't think I like this one the best. I don't know. And it might be this one here that I stitch. I'm not sure yet. So I haven't decided. I don't think it's this one. So I have to decide which one I'm going to do. But that, and the reason, I can tell you the reason why this one piques my interest more than any other is the architectural component to this design. While he says that this has a very Frisian aesthetic, and I'm sure it does, which I don't really know that. I don't have the knowledge background to analyze that. Me aesthetically, I'm drawn to this based on the architectural feel of the shaping, the columns. It kind of reminds, not kind of, it reminds me. It's reminiscent of, I think it's Moscow City Hall. To me, it's just reminiscent. It's not like truly like, but there's a lot of lots of buildings that this just reminds me of. It also kind of reminds me of a throne, like the seat, the backing of the seat back of a throne. There's just so much architecture in this that I'm just so drawn to this. So that is why I picked this design to start next. Okay, enough on me just rambling. So the colors that I have chosen to do, shocking, 3829 is going to be my main color. And my contrasting color is DMC6. So I'm picking from that new set of colors. So my main color is 3829, contrasting color of 6. A little bit unique, I know. And my fabric color is Fiberlicious Burnt Umber, which is quite unique for me. So my fabric is a 40 count linen. The piece of fabric I have is 26 by 36, so it's a large piece of fabric. I'm not going to be using that whole piece of fabric, but I didn't cut it yet. And here is, there's still a string on it, a thread on it, because I'm still in the midst of stitching. Here is my progress so far. And my guess is the fabric is not going to do it justice in the picture in the viewfinder. So, oh, maybe it will. But there is Burnt Umber 40 count using the 2 colors of DMC. And if you can't tell already, I'm doing opposite colors of the light and dark to what Modern Folk Embroidery is suggesting. So where he has the lighter color is where I'm doing the darker color, and where he has the darker color, I'm doing the lighter color. So his blue is where my gray taupey white color is, and then the brassy yellow color is where his cream color is. So there we go. Reaching Skyward. So this is the entire size of the January box. And so now I'm just filling in the January portion. So what's nice about this stitch along is that I already have the entire piece. And so if I want to move forward on more than just January at one time, I can, or I can do one month at a time. We'll see what I do. If I get it done this year, I get it done this year. If I don't, I don't. But it's a new start. So I've already done 2 new starts in 2023. That's 2 more than I did in 2022. So again, 40 count Burnt Umber by Fiberlicious Yummy Fibers, and using DMC 3829 and 6. Oh, and it's one strand of DMC over 2 strands of the fabric, 1/2. I will say using that lighter color is not my favorite quality of stitching, because anytime I use a light color, it's almost like using white. Your stitches don't look as nice as if you do a darker strand. But I think overall it will look really nice with that fabric and once it's all stitched up. And you're not going to be right up on top of it. You're going to be looking at it from a distance. So that is my progress since last we spoke. So as long as I'm starting to feel better, I will be back tomorrow with another episode. I don't know what I will get done. But until then, I hope you all have a great holiday if you celebrate Martin Luther King Day. And until I see you again, as always, don't forget to always be creative.